Hello and welcome back once again to CBR MTG. My name is Angus Mackay. I'm joined here by Philip Nicholson.
Hi, I'm Philip.
And Tim Evers.
Hey, I'm Tim.
And we're doing something a little bit special today. We're doing our very last video for CBR MTG's trip to CanCon 2018. On footage we have Adam Woodward on Burn and Then on Grixis Delver. Grixis Delver we've had on a few times, but Tim, maybe you'd like to walk us through what Grixis Delver is trying to do.
Grixis Delver essentially just tries to stick an early threat like a Delver of Secrets or a Deathrite Shaman, and then use effective counter magic like Force of Will and Daze to keep enemy threats off the table. Also plays a good removal suite in the Abrupt Decay and Lightning Bolt to keep the opponent off the board and just kill them before they get a chance to really impact the game.
Yeah, absolutely. We say Grixis Delver pretty lightly because they are playing the fourth color in green, but that is almost certainly just for Deathrite Shaman activations and maybe something little out of the board like the Abrupt Decays you mentioned before, but it's mostly just for Deathrite Shaman. Also,
some decks do play a Leovold either main or in the board.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's a good card, why not play it, you know? And then on the other side we have Burn. Philip, how do you feel about Burn?
I feel like it's a deck that wants to reduce its opponent's life total to 0 as quickly as possible.
Yep, that's a fairly safe assumption. This one seems to be playing white in the form of Plateau, but perhaps that's just for sideboard cards?
It could be sideboard cards. It could also just be Lightning Helixes. It's
okay.
Not a terrible burn spell.
Yeah, sure. Similar to the modern variant where you're playing Lightning Helix and Boros Charm and stuff like that.
Yeah, the white mana really helps you win the mirror with the form of Lightning Helixes, and it does give you the board options you mentioned, like Rest in Peace for having some game against Dredge.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's definitely opens you a lot wider up to enchantment removal as well. If we ever see a Leyline coming on the opposite side, like you might be able to disenchant it or something like that. But you just Legacy Burn is a little bit more refined than its other format counterparts because it has Fire Blast and because it has I think Pyrokinesis as well is something that you're able to have out of the board, but it gives you just a little bit more reach in those scenarios.
Well, Pyrokinesis doesn't really give much reach, but it does help control the enemy creatures.
Yeah,
the creatures.
Of course. We're seeing as you said before, the early threat in the form of Deathrite and a Delver of Secrets. Unfortunately, we weren't able to flip the Delver yet, but we're able to swing for one, which could mean the difference between this game. We'll see. We'll see.
I mean, the blind flip Delver only has a bit under a 50% chance in most lists I've seen of actually occurring.
Okay. Well then, yeah, sometimes you just gotta be lucky.
Usually it gets accompanied by the Brainstorm or the Pollen to really help it happen as soon as possible.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. In Adam's hand, we've got Eidolon and a Swift Spear. Seems like some very generic burn cards, but I think we'll probably have no other choice but to just play them both out. It doesn't seem to be swinging, which is probably totally reasonable, but you could get that little one in if you don't swing with the Deathrite.
It also looked like it was a Price of Progress in his hand, I believe.
It might be a Fire Blast.
I thought it was a Fire Blast, yeah.
Alright, my mistake. Yeah, the Price of Progress is notably a bit worse in the burn decks that are splashing other colours, like with the Plateau.
Yeah, it's still not too bad.
Not usually a problem unless your opponent's also being very aggressive.
Trading 2 life for 6 life is, completely reasonable.
Well, it's more than 2 life. There's an Eidolon in play, but
oh yeah, of course, as well as the Eidolon. Hopefully the Eidolon will be able to slow Thing down, but he's going to have to consider whether or not he wants to trade the Deathrite Shaman, which could gain him some life later on, but it looks like he's just going to take it.
Well, the Deathrite Shaman doesn't trade with anything, it only has 1 power.
Yeah, but in the face of 3 mana untapped and the Monastery Swift Spear, you might be a little bit more inclined to maybe make the chump.
I mean, 3 mana is going to play 1 or 2 spells most likely, so you'd be blocking 2 or 3 damage by losing your Deathrite Shaman, which can then gain you 2 life each turn with the green mode if there's creatures in the bin. Which, if there's not creatures in the bin, the Grixis player is going to be losing the game to these creatures anyway.
Yeah,
he's also sitting on a Spell Pierce, so if one of the cards in hand is something like Price of Progress, then Adam's only getting the Prowess trigger off of it. He's not getting the damage itself.
Okay, that's reasonable.
There's still the Eidolon for that though.
Unfortunately, unless that's there might be a Lava Spike in his hand, which isn't too bad, but if that's a mountain that Adam's holding, it makes it a little bit more awkward because the burn player never wants to have more than 3 lands, and now suddenly he's top decking them, so it might be a bit hard for him to get through this.
Well, if it is the Fire Blast, then he can lose 2 lands to the Fire Blast and still be able to cast whatever he draws.
Yeah, okay, that's reasonable.
Which isn't terrible, but obviously you would prefer like another Lightning Bolt.
Yeah, for sure. Now we've run out of creatures in the bin, so unless he has a Lightning Bolt in hand, is he choosing to untap? Okay, I think we're about to go to combat, perhaps, but yeah, the Lightning Bolt could mean lights out for Thang. You know, just a little bit more. Just needs a little bit more to get through there.
He's very close to just getting him with his Insectile Aberration.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Keeping pace quite effectively.
Yeah, absolutely. And no shortage of targets for the black mode of Deathray Charmer before he hits the bin, taking out that Lava Spike. But he will take a little bit of damage from this. So we'll see if he can make it through. That Fire Blast has only got for 4, so Adam's only got to last one more turn.
Lightning Bolt. That changes the clock a bit. Yeah. Although 1 damage short of being lethal here.
Well, no, with if Fire Blast is instant, then you won't be able to cast any spell.
Yeah, because the Fire Blast just kills them.
Yeah. So
it's true. It's looking not very good for them.
Yeah, it might be lights out, but I mean, we'll definitely swing in and see how our opponent responds. But the Fire Blast could just be the last thing that he needs.
Yeah, it's very difficult for them to actually play an answer to the onboard threats as well, with each spell he casts costing him life.
Yeah, exactly.
Eidolon does a lot of work in Legacy Burn.
Yeah, absolutely.
Arguably the most impactful card to the archetype.
It's very interesting, like how much more effective it is than in other formats. Because I mean, Legacy, like, it has some of the most powerful 1 and 2 drops in the format, you know, and in the game. So being able to capitalize on that with the Price of Progresses as well as the Eidolons, you know, like, could be pretty good for him. But it looks like it's just going to be lights out for Thang this round. Unfortunately, not going to be able to come back from that. And we're just discussing it at the moment. I guess he does have the capability to counter it, but I think
he'll take enough damage that the Eidolon that's unblocked probably kills him.
Yeah,
he can counter it if he's got a Force.
Okay. Force will get there. I think we're looking at a Spell Pierce and a Daze though, which won't get there.
I mean, Adam also just has 2 mana floating before he's even sacked the lands to 5.
Oh, of course.
And another 2 untapped. So yeah, Daze and Spell Pierce definitely are not going to get there.
No.
But, you know, taking 2 damage is pretty good. Alright, it seems that Then has seen the line and he's going to pack it up. So going into round 2, we might be able to get a little peek about what each player is thinking about in their sideboard. But in usual sort of Grixis Delver lists, you do have that sort of form of removal. You might be playing the Leovold in the board if you choose to, which is probably not good in this matchup. But it's going to be a weird one because not many players are playing Leyline of Sanctity or any of those kind of really hard spells for them to push through.
He's got some Cabal Therapies which he can use to take out choice pieces of burn, especially if he has Git Probe still, but Git Probe becomes also considerably more risky with paying life against burn.
Definitely a consideration to take out, even taking out a Git Probe, just because of you know, you're looking at their hand and it's like, well, it's you know, 3 or 4 burn spells. Is it worth paying 2 life for that information? Maybe not.
Well, you can still cast it for a blue mana.
Yeah, sure. And still get the benefit.
You've got the Young Pyromancer. Cabal Therapy is definitely very effective. You can just name, say, Price of Progress or Fire Blast blind, and then sacrifice an elemental token to get whatever you see is actually in their hand.
Yeah, that's a hugely powerful interaction.
Burn is definitely a strong 4-of deck. Like, most of the cards in the deck are 4-of spells because they just want that consistent damage. Yep. So you're more likely to get double hits against burn than probably most other decks in the format.
Yeah, absolutely.
They also obviously can't respond to a Cabal Therapy with Brainstorm or something like that to protect their important cards.
Yeah, exactly. Blue. Yeah, and that'll just send them out. Seems that Thang just brought in a Flusterstorm and sided out a Young Pyromancer, if I'm not mistaken. So just being very light touch on the situation. It's going to be a very there's going to be a lot of skill that will be required from both players to kind of make through these next couple of games. But Then has just opted for just playing his cards the best he can and hoping for the best. As we said before, it doesn't really seem like there's a whole lot of silver bullets that you would play in a normal meta sideboard that will get rid of burn.
No, that's probably one of Burn's major strengths, is just the consistency, and you don't open yourself up to the strong hate cards.
Yeah. Yeah, it seems that a lot of people are running, 2 or 3 surgical extractions in every sideboard, but not many people are playing those 4 of Leyline of Sanctity.
No. I mean, in the modern format, Burn is often you encounter things like Kitchen Finks and Thragtusk in sideboards, where they just have the ability to gain a bunch of life. That's not so common in Legacy, though, because it does
definitely not.
Something against Burn, maybe, if you can get to enough mana, but in most matchups, it's just very dead.
Yeah, what do you think about the fact of the just crucial lack of good, efficient, creature-based decks in Legacy?
Personally, I'm a big fan. I don't really like creatures.
Yeah.
But, yeah, it's definitely interesting. Like, the creature-based decks are usually combo of some sort. Like, there's Elves and there's Reanimator.
Yeah.
That are both trying to put all these creatures on the field, but they don't do it in the conventional mid-rangey sense that you see in other formats.
Yeah, sure. Definitely missing a lot of those mid-range decks, because like Jund was very popular in Legacy for quite some time, but then it just kind of fell out of favor because there was too many, like, turns out blue is a very good color in Legacy.
I mean, Shardless Bug was a blue deck, and no one seems to play that anymore either.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Also, I think like Maverick is sort of picking up in popularity, and I guess that's probably the closest you can get to creature-based deck that you can. But that's
Death and Taxes, right?
Yeah,
that's
sure.
a very popular deck, always has been.
Yeah, absolutely. No,
puts creatures out, puts equipment out to put on your creatures.
Yeah, it seems like the best way to get ahead with a creature style deck is to make sure that those creatures have a bunch of utility in the form of taxing effects or mana denial in the form of sort of the Ranamap Excavator style decks.
Yeah, I guess that's sort of what you were saying about the Legacy format, because even though like Death and Taxes is very creature oriented, a lot of people will just view it as a control deck anyway, because it's just trying to deny your mana and stop you from participating in the game rather than play the bigger and better creatures.
Yeah, exactly.
I guess a format that doesn't beget having the big creatures as the dominant strategy makes it even worse to try to do that, because you can't do anything by playing a bigger creature and blocking.
Yeah.
Like you play a Thragtusk and then your opponent says, oh, okay, I'm going to play all these rituals and tendrils you to death.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
You had 5 extra life. Good thing I passed in flames to get my storm count up to 30.
That's exactly right. Well, it just means that like there's not a whole lot of attacking and blocking, I suppose you could say, as well in Legacy. There's lots of attacking, not a whole lot of like combat mass and blocking going through. Seeing an early lightning bolt on that Deathrite Shaman, definitely a good strategy, I'd say.
Yeah, the only good Deathrite Shaman is a dead one.
Yeah, exactly. And especially with that life gain option that he'll have, not with the current mana that he's playing against, but being able to play out those early threats with the Scalding Tarn and the Arid Mesa, and just being able to get life down the track. Definitely the first thing that you want to bolt.
On the other hand, the fact that Adam's now used 2 and possibly a third on the Young Pyromancer burn spells as removal spells is definitely negatively impacting his ability to actually win the game.
Yeah, well, that's right. It there's not a whole lot of reasoning to, not go for face. A lot of people say always face, never block,
I've definitely seen games of this particular matchup where they've just ignored the bolting of the Deathrite Shaman and the Young Pyromancer and just gone face. And they haven't drawn any creatures in their hand, so the Deathrite Shaman has nothing to exile unless they try and kill their own creatures. And the Young Pyromancer, whilst it does generate a lot of value and creatures that'll kill you in the long run, Burn can just outpace that by playing a 3-mana burn spell for 1 mana as many times a turn as possible.
The burn deck doesn't even play that many creatures in the long run,
It's usually Swift Spears and Eidolons.
There's also definitely Goblin Guides in this list.
Yeah,
Goblin Guides is very common. Grim Lavamancer often features in the sideboard, I think. But
very good against Deathrite Shaman.
Just being able to get that little bit against elves, where you really want the repeated creature removal. Against Delver, I wouldn't say it's incorrect to side it in, but just outpace them is usually the way I see the Delver decks lose.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like, also you get like a little bit of advantage from playing the repeatable thing. If your opponent keeps countering your spells, like, at least you have that Grim Lavamancer on the stage to sort of eat up some of that damage.
That's true, but I think like Sulfuric Vortex does a better job of that. I think I might have seen one in Adam's hand there, so he may have actually boarded that in for the grindy matchup.
There definitely is one in his hand. It's just unfortunate he's down 8 life.
Yeah, it makes things a little bit hard. He will have to work.
It's probably not a good idea to play the Sulfuric Vortex into the Pyromancer, because it attacks every turn. So even if he draws the continual burn effects to bring Thing back in line, the Pyromancer then strips ahead.
Yeah, exactly. Good time to have that Pyrokinesis if he did have it in a sideboard. But
absolutely, that is definitely one card that Burn definitely wants to board in against Grixis Delver.
This double Fire Blast hand isn't too bad. I mean,
double Fire Blast still isn't quite half of the 18 life total he's facing. So
yeah, I mean, but still, I was just thinking it might like put you ahead just a little bit, so that you can play that Sulfuric Vortex. But these Delvers aren't holding back, you know.
It's good to see the Wasteland is no targets though.
I mean, it can target itself. It can target one of the other.
That's true. He can blow up his own lands to make his Deathrite Shaman add mana, but that just seems very, counterintuitive.
What about the price of progress?
Really price of progress.
It's probably one of the.
That's probably the only reason you leave the Wastelands in against a deck like Burn. You never get to blow up your opponent's lands, and the Grixis Delver deck has very few uses for the colorless mana. Like Young Pyromancer, obviously, and they might be playing some number of True Name Nemesis.
Yeah, it's very possible.
Other than that, the colorless mana doesn't do a lot.
Adam does definitely have Plateau in his deck, so Wasteland has
at
least one target.
At least one, yeah, exactly right.
Probably has as many as 4.
Yeah, we'll see. It looks like Thing's making a couple of changes. On Adam's side, still considering his match 3 changes as well. He's actually sided in 4 cards, if I'm not mistaken. So that's
that could be 4 Dazes coming out. They're much worse on the draw against Burn.
Okay, that's reasonable. That's absolutely reasonable. And
that would be my first guess at changing for going to game 3.
Yeah, okay. It looks like Adam's siding out his Rift Bolts, possibly going for something else a little bit more aggressive. But
interesting.
Definitely...
Rift Bolt is definitely very aggressive. It's 1 mana for 3 damage. Even though it happens next turn, it's unlikely to make a big difference in this matchup. I mean, against a combo deck where if you suspend it and pass the turn with lethal for next turn, they just storm off or put a Grizzlebrand out with haste and attack you.
That could be his mindset, because he saw that game was like pretty close and he couldn't actually play the Sulfuric Vortex because it was that close. But I mean, it might not be a good way of thinking, considering Rift Bolt's such a good card.
In general, though, you can also just sequence it, so you play a Rift Bolt before all your burn spells that happen immediately, and it doesn't matter in the long run, unless it's a terrible top deck if you needed it to be Chain Lightning or Lightning Bolt. But
yeah, that's reasonable.
In most other situations, it's fine.
Perhaps Adam's considering bringing in a little bit more sort of mass removal if he was having any Fiery Confluences or something. That could be a good thing to bring in.
I haven't heard of Fiery Confluence in Burn before. 4 mana is very high.
It's very ambitious, but it's also like a good. I
suppose for the slower matchups, right?
Yeah,
might just get there. But I found the more common thing from the slower matchups is to side in Pyrostatic Pillars to complement the Eidolons. So whenever the Delver deck plays very few spells that cost more than 3 mana.
Yeah,
it's basically just Force of Will, to my knowledge. So every time he casts a spell, taking 2, 4, or even 6 damage.
That's pretty good.
I think you'll find Game Angler is also a spell that costs.
That's true. I always forget about the fish.
Fish only costs 1 mana, please. It looks like Thang has decided to. He possibly has that Cabal Therapy backup, but this is
just paying life for the.
This is paying life is pretty aggro, yeah, especially because he's on 15 already.
Luckily for him, Adam's hand doesn't have much in it.
Yeah, I mean that's information that he's now gathering off this, but the Pyroblast not going to do a whole lot. He may have decided to. Maybe that was the card that he decided to bring in. Although it doesn't burn face, which is unfortunate, it will make sure that a Fire Blast goes through, which is very important.
It's also possible that, because I only saw the Searing Blazes in Game 1 and also Game 3, he may have decided to swap them out for the draw. Similar to Days, it's much better on the play.
Yeah, absolutely. That's completely reasonable.
Yeah, it's very good to play a turn 1 creature and then force it through a second time with a turn 2 Searing Blaze on their blocker or Deathrite Shaman.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, a lot of damage and you stop them from progressing their board. Strong tempo play.
Absolutely.
You could add Delvers to the deck.
Yeah, that's right. With the Yeah, with this Goblin Guide, I think we're just discussing what the life totals are, but I think we're pretty happy on 20 versus 13. However, Goblin Guide, probably one of his better top decks that he could have, considering his hand was pretty anemic to begin with.
Yeah, Goblin Guide adds that damage every turn, and the burn deck rarely cares about giving the opponent a few extra lands in their hand.
Yes.
I mean, it does mean they draw into their relevant spells more quickly, but the general methodology on burn is to just convert all your cards into damage and kill them before their cards in hand are relevant.
Yeah, exactly.
If you reveal a Daze to Goblin Guide, they don't get lands in hand anyway, so it's all fine.
Yeah,
exactly. And then you know to play around the Daze.
Yeah, which is not
added value. It's really a beneficial trigger on attack.
Yeah, absolutely. In that one instance, absolutely. But the Daze is definitely something that he will have to keep in mind at the very least, because he can't just like play out willy-nilly to a price progress and something else. But he does have that Pyroblast just to kind of protect himself a little bit more.
He did also reveal a lot of lands to the Gitaxian Probe, so playing around Daze should not be too difficult.
No.
Yeah, that's true.
Also,
that's true.
Pyroblasting should never be considered an out to a Daze. The mana you spend on the Pyroblast could just be used to pay for the Daze.
Okay, yeah, that's reasonable. Okay, there we go. We're actually having a counter war in burn, but yeah, it seems that the Daze was beneficial in the end, preventing that Searing Blaze from getting through. But I think we're going to go bashing anyway, because why not, right?
Well, I mean, I think red is the color with the second most counter magic in it, is it not?
Is that
obviously
true?
blue is the winner,
yeah.
but
Okay, sure. Well, that's reasonable.
I think you'll find Dash Hopes is a very powerful spell.
Dash Hopes is definitely a card. There's also Mana Tithe, but outside of that, I suppose Nether Void probably swings it back into black's favor.
There's also a white Memory Lapse for 3. I can't remember what it's called, but it exists.
Everyone's trying the very hardest counter spells, but I think blue has it in the bag.
Maybe.
It's a consideration.
I'm not convinced. Like, Force of Will is just card disadvantage, so...
It's interesting. Is this Delver not flipping and then also attacking? That's very unfortunate.
It's not like it's going to block.
Well, you don't want to just sacrifice it to prevent 2 damage. That's not how you're going to win a match.
Yeah, no, that's completely reasonable. It's just like seems very unlikely that he hasn't been able to...
He's also sitting on removal spells for Goblin Guide, so...
Yeah, sure. Well, that's completely reasonable. It's funny that he hasn't been able to flip his Delver yet, but...
It's going to flip next turn.
It's definitely going to flip next turn.
Like, it only missed 1 turn and there were no cantrips played.
Ooh, the Spell Pierce, unfortunately, with having to think about it, we may have the second Pyroblast in hand? No, definitely not. Then Ensnaring Bridge would be a good play from Adam, but unfortunately...
Ensnaring Bridge is definitely a spicy one to side in the burn matchup where you're trying to attack with a lot of creatures.
Yeah, but...
a lot of the creatures have 1 or 2 power, though.
That's true, but even 2 power is 1 too many to get onto most bridges.
Yeah, that's true.
Sure.
The important thing is that he will never have more than 3 cards in his hand, or 5 in the form of Gomag Angler.
I certainly wouldn't have bought it in Ensnaring Bridge against the Delver deck, because, again, their creatures have very low power. It stops the Gomag Angler pretty effectively, and sometimes it'll stop an Insectile Aberration before it stops the burn player from attacking with, say, Eidolons and Goblin Guides.
It definitely doesn't stop Deathrite Shaman, which I think is probably a big issue with
Doesn't stop Deathrite Shaman, does
that's a good
potentially
point.
not a great deal against Young Pyromancer.
Once again, Adam has the Fire Blast in hand, ready to pop it off, but it's not
Way
exactly
too much life on the other side of the table.
And we're drawing way too many lands as well. I'm pretty sure that was his second land drop. Possibly just keeping it in hand in case he draws another Searing Blaze, but
it's probably worth him considering whether or not it's worth snapping off the Fire Blast to destroy the Insectile Aberration and just hope the game goes really long and he can draw into his other ways of winning.
Eidolon is definitely going to help him win if it doesn't get forced. Looks like Then's considering he does have the lightning bolt, which is probably
kill
better.
It dead.
Yeah,
like 2 damage to deal with it. It's not terrible.
Yeah, that's right. But every time that he gets closer, he is going to use that Fire Blast. Well, it's good that Then kept up that Force of Will, because he is going to be able to take that out and take out the Eidolon with the lightning bolts. So definitely matching.
Looking good for the Delver player at this particular juncture.
Yeah, absolutely.
One thing I've seen that would be decent in this situation for the burn player is instead of splashing white, I've seen burn decks splashing black. There's a particular card, I forget what it's called, it's from Betrayal to Kamigawa, I think, where each player starts bidding life, and then the player that wins the bidding war loses that much life and then draws, it's 3 cards, I think.
Ooh. That sounds very spicy.
Yeah.
I would love to check that out.
I used the lightning bolt for lethal instead of killing the Eidolon. I suppose killing them removes the Eidolon from the table as well.
Yeah, that's true. That That ties it all up in a neat little bow with one to burn and 2 to Grixis Delver.
I think that's often the way this matchup goes. Grixis Delver's answers are very efficient.
Yeah, absolutely.
If they can keep the burn player off the table, or if the burn player stumbles on their draws too often with some lands, then Grixis definitely pulls ahead.
I mean, Adam was really close with the... he only had 7, and he did top deck those last 2 lands, which could have been literally anything else, and he might have been in a different
kind of the
situation.
nature of burn is
If they were both fire blasts, right?
Yeah,
Exactly.
you always feel as though you got really close because all your spells do 3 or more damage.
Yeah, but that's the nature of it. Thank you so much once again for joining us on CBR MTG. This is the last video for this series, so thank you so much for pushing through with us for the last 14 or 17 or so days. I've been working very hard to get these videos out on time, and we appreciate you staying tuned for them all. So my name is Angus Mackay. Once again, I'm joined here by Philip Nicholson
Hello.
and Tim Evers.
See ya.
Have a good one.